Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak, here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'll be speaking on these subjects with Connor Drigotas from Better Money Pack. That's PAC, not packed. PACK or T. I've been saying it wrong all day, guys. Better Money Pack. You just told me right before we went on air it's registered as a super PAC. That sounds really cool, but what is a super PAC?
Absolutely. First, Kat, thanks so much for grabbing time. I'm really glad that we were able to make this work. I know we are bouncing schedules around with everything that's been going on with you for the last month or so. But yeah, so getting started as a super PAC actually allows us to make unlimited contributions around the country to help support candidates who are pro crypto, who are pro fiscal responsibility and pro free market solutions.
Oh wow, dude, that sounds awesome. All right, so we can rekindle that conversation in a sec. I just wanted to get that out there a little bit, let people know what we're gonna get into.
Yes.
But I do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, let everybody know like who you are, how you got into crypto in general, maybe a little origin story there, and let people know like what you do now that you're kind of in the industry and how it relates to what you do career-wise.
Absolutely. So yeah, my name is Connor Drigotas. I realize that can be a little bit of a mouthful, so I won't bother too much with that. But we actually started the Better Money Pack after a conversation I had with Ken and a lot of different people at the End the Fed event in Philadelphia back at the beginning of September. We were down there outside actually protesting just the ridiculous money system in this country. And a lot of people at the event after the rally were sitting around and we are talking about how difficult it is to elect candidates who aren't willing to sell out their morals to get a chunk of cash. And anytime that we have a problem, obviously we're looking for a solution. And the idea that came out of that was the Better Money Pack. So, as I mentioned before, committed to candidates who are going to do something about fiscal responsibility in this country. You know, with the debt going over $20 trillion. That number I just saw today, $62,000 per person in this
Wow.
country right now, is just astronomical. And yeah, it was super frustrating. So we just needed a vehicle to find a way to help these people out because we know there are good people out there. There is the potential for better leadership, for good leaders in this country. But the honest truth is, if you aren't willing to bend over backwards to serve someone else's goals, sometimes it can be really hard to get funding and run a successful campaign. So relating to that, my career is in personal finance. I help people make and save money for retirement. Look at their IRAs and help out with 401ks with companies and individuals and families. So when I started looking at this, it made a lot of sense to apply a lot of those same principles of smart money to this movement and to actually helping folks across the country. And I can think of no better vehicle to really drive that point home than decentralized currency and doing things not just for better money, but for smarter money across the whole spectrum.
That's awesome because, like you said, you're looking for people that don't really want to sell out just so they can get a platform to try to make the changes they want. Because unfortunately, not so many politicians make it through that. Like I feel like it's like one of those typical like, oh, I want to be a dentist or I want to be like a cop, and then you find out that the job kind of sucks in the end when you're an adult. Like, oh, I'm going to be a politician. I'm going to change the world, and then you find out you kind of have to say things you might not believe in so you can get the platform to say the things you do believe in, and then you kind of get lost in the sauce. So it's good to know that there's ways for people to be like, hey, look, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I believe in. And you'd be like, you know what? We believe in you too. You don't even have to go any farther, do you? That's awesome. What does or I'm sorry, let me start off with how did the organization get started? Like, what are kind of like the origin story there for Better Money Pack?
Yeah. So from that event, from the End the Fed rally, there's a lot of people, I guess, in Pennsylvania, but also people who came in from surrounding states as well. And we just started looking at how do we make this a reality. And the honest truth is, to a certain extent, it's just a matter of filing a bunch of paperwork, and making sure that you are legally able to contribute 2 different candidacies across the country. So that was a lot of phone time with the FEC, everyone's favorite organization, um, which overall, honestly, not too bad. But I think past that initial idea, figuring out what actually matters was the biggest thing. So having more conversations about, when a candidate says they're pro cryptocurrency, pro safe currency, what does that actually mean? Do they need to, be active day traders themselves, or do they just need to have good ideas about policy, or, where does that line come down? And what it's really developed into is we're currently seeking out experts, active investors in the crypto space, not necessarily because they'd be the best candidates, but because they have the best insight into what's happening in the crypto market. And they can help us inform, hey, what makes a good candidate? What makes someone a real winner for this cause? And it's been hugely helpful to reach out to folks all across the country who have just been so willing to help and have conversations about what that means to them as investors.
So what are some of the steps that you go through when you're looking for those people? Or how could those people find you, like something like that?
Yeah. In terms of finding us, we've actually already started to receive requests for funding for 2018. So we do have a website, bettermoneypac.com. And on there, we actually just have a section right there. Hey, send us a referral. Meaning if you know about a candidate who's great and you really want them to have access to funding, let us know. And we'll, do screenings on who they are, what they believe. Obviously, in a process like this, it's not enough for someone to just say, I kind of know what a Bitcoin is. Sure, I'm all behind it. Write me a check. That's not enough to cut it. We are in an interesting situation in that a super PAC cannot directly collaborate with a campaign. What that means is we actually can't sit down and strategize with a campaign manager or a campaign worker or the candidate themselves. What we focus on is topics, and recognizing that, as we send out surveys to these candidates, we want to know what they believe, but at our core, an effort. So as long as they believe what we believe is important, that's the most important thing, not what party line they fall on or any of those other factors, which, that's where politics can really get messy, is in those sorts of details. So we try to just remove ourselves from that entirely.
That's good. I like the whole, community-based review. Like, hey, this is a reference, and the community can be like, you like, wow, this person's been recommended by so many people in the community. Maybe we should reach out to them. They seem to have like an audience. That's pretty cool, man. It's not like like you said. I know about Bitcoin. Can I have money? I have a Bitcoin. I
Exactly.
have a Bitcoin wallet. Send it to my email address. Like that's not how
Exactly.
it works. What is kind of like on the dock for next? Like, what are some of the next things that you guys got going on, or something in the works? Any exclusives you could drop?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the coolest things that we've been working on is actually we've had huge outpourings of support. So, CEOs of companies. One guy I was just on the phone with the other day, Zach Hamilton of General Crypto. So that's actually a hedge fund, multi-million dollars out in California. Really helpful guy. We've just found so many people willing to talk to us about what should be next. Obviously, I can tell you the FEC paperwork. By the time that the federal government got through with it, from the first, beginning of this idea in the beginning of September, we only actually got officially approved on October 2nd to start taking funds. Very new movement. And even just since then, we've already had so many people reaching out saying that this is something that's important to them, something they're passionate about, and wanting to help us out. I can tell you, actually, it's kind of cool. I cashed our first check today, and we also got our first Bitcoin contribution to the Political Action Committee today.
Oh well,
And I was able to put that in our
congratulations, man!
wallets.
A
So,
small
yeah.
little round of applause. That is awesome.
Exactly. It's a really cool thing. And, a couple years ago, they did rule that we can take Bitcoin and Litecoin and Ethereum. We could take any cryptocurrency that we want as long as it's reported. which
Right.
is,
I was going
especially
to
in this
get to
community,
this,
so important.
so I don't want to forget. I would love to segue right into that topic. How do you control, or not control, but like record the ins and outs of crypto, and what are some of the precautions you're taking for like any like auditing events in the future, anything like that? In case somebody wants to start something like you're doing that wants to contribute,
Yeah.
how could what are some of the things they should know, some of the hoops that they might run into?
Well, if there's one thing that we can be really honest about, it's that the FEC loves to make sure that things are on paper and have a paper trail. So we are beholden to that system at the end of the day. And their standards are that every single person contributing, whether it's by check, cash, Bitcoin, anything, needs to record their first name, last name, phone number, email address, actual address, employer, and occupation.
Whoa.
Huge amount of information. Now, that is good for us, though I think across the board, a lot of people view it as a real negative. Because I think a lot of people, they love the anonymous part of the crypto world, but at the same time, we are a hugely transparent organization here. One of our big pushes and big threads that makes us different than a lot of super PACs, which can get a really negative name as funneling dark money essentially, is every single dollar that we put toward a campaign or toward an effort over the next 2 to 5 years. Every single dollar that goes out is actually going to have a written justification for why we're supporting a candidacy published to our website. And we think that that's really important because you should know as a contributor what your dollars are going to and what they're supporting. So on the back end, we're happy to do some paperwork and fill it out for the FEC. So we're not getting in trouble, but at the end of the day, I think we owe that right back to our investors to give them the same due diligence and letting them know what they're getting involved in.
I'm on both sides of the fence when it comes to all the information involved, the data collection, I guess, or the information collection. But then again, we could have had some situation where billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin could have been funneled into a campaign for anybody, and if you didn't have to take all that information and do all this, that could become a real big problem. Because right now we have the whole like social media, foreign government campaigning for American, politics. Because apparently social media advertising doesn't fall under the same as entertainment advertising, and basically Russia could legally give Trump money to advertise on Facebook, but not on television. So like I've been trying to follow politics a little bit, how like the money comes in and the money moves around, and I don't like I do you see cryptocurrencies making it harder for people to, have dark money come in to help their agenda, or do you think it's going to make it easier, for us to be like, yo, I can see it's open ledger, dude, what are you doing? Like, what do you think? Do you think this is going to help or hurt, or just curious what your thoughts are on how crypto and like political money laundering, I guess, could be like how that all goes hand in hand.
Right. We've seen it so much in the media that, people get this perception of crypto as just kind of moving money for the sake of moving money or moving it, for nefarious reasons. And I think it's really important that people recognize the huge economic benefit that can be gained by this. I'm generally I'm a small government guy. I really don't need government in my business all the time. But when it comes to something as important as your vote and the power that your vote holds, I am okay with the fact that we are putting some controls in place to make sure that if I have a different viewpoint than you, I can't overrule the power of your vote just because I have a bigger checkbook.
Right.
And the details of how that actually ends up getting litigated over the next couple years is going to be a very interesting battle to watch. But when it comes to cryptocurrency, the amount of wealth that's being generated and the amount of wealth that people are developing, not just in the industry in terms of trading, but applying the blockchain technology elsewhere, it's far too important to ignore anymore. And that's one of our founding reasons. We recognized a market that right now, cryptocurrency and investors and people who really care about this realm, they don't have a voice because no one stepped up to the plate and said, we need to address the fact that there's 170 billion in market cap right now that doesn't have a voice in who's being elected, but are hugely at risk for regulatory pressures that, as we've seen, continue to grow every single day.
Talking about like blockchain technologies and the mainstream, in what way do you see blockchain technology first being implemented into the mainstream? To start the topic, me personally, I kind of see it possibly for voting. Like that, to me, I think will be the first blockchain based mainstream adoption. People won't even know they're using blockchain technology. They'll get an app. You'll have to use your social security number and your driver's license number to log in. You get, all this and that. I mean, even homeless people in America have an iPhone 5 now. So, I mean, we could use this digital error here that we're in to really give people a voice that don't even have one, you know, at all. Like they couldn't vote. They don't have an identification card. To get the identification card, you have to get a job. To get the job, you need an identification card. Good luck, dude. But you could at least get to vote if you have a phone and you can prove you are who you are. And that's where I think blockchain may end up mainstream with voting. But what is your take on that?
I love that idea. I think that it's so important, and especially applying it to, we normally consider, social issues. Blockchain technology brings so much to the table. From an economic perspective, is mostly the way that I've looked at it. Actually, being able to integrate this technology into logistics and operations management, especially. I come from a logistics background back a couple years ago, and the ability to have that verification would save millions and billions of dollars, could help industries grow, can help people better understand the data in a more simple way, which, when you talk about long-term economic prospects and the ability of currency to grow, the stability and responsibility of United States policy, free market solutions, holy cow, what a tool to bring that to the masses. And especially once you get something into business, that can be a real tipping point for technology to become mainstream. And unfortunately, government sometimes is the last adopter in the market.
When my imagination got running when I first found out about like Bitcoin and stuff, like I like again, I'm kind of a stoner, guys. I'm open about that. So I kind of space out. I'm a little far out there, but I was sitting there like reading about Ethereum, and actually, funny enough, that's what got me into Bitcoin, Ethereum. And I'm like, yo, the Internet of Things, smart contracts, and I was like, you know what? Like the first thing that came to my mind, you know what smart contracts are gonna replace? Charities. Charities. You write the code, you donate to the code based on what event, say there was a natural disaster in another state, that trips off the smart contract, that pays out to that event. Then there's nobody to take a cut off the top, like the Red Cross. Every CEO of every non-profit has a fucking mansion and a Ferrari and a goddamn yacht. And they're going to have the nerve to say non-profit charity when we all know about 1 penny out of every dollar gets to the actual. And the victims of Katrina are still waiting for their support from the Red Cross and all that. So I could see smart contracts coming into play with, charities and stuff like that. That way you can have a true charity. Is there anything that you could see smart contracts coming into play with besides that, though?
I think the more, I want to be really upfront here. When it comes to a technological basis for this technology, I'm not the expert. One of
Oh,
the
I'm not an
reasons that
expert
I
either.
got, yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'd hate to, just, start talking about it in that way because, I have a lot of great people who are aware of how this works and can, build it from the ground up. But when I see it, I tend to think more on the idea side as well. And I think, philosophically, the more options we can give people to enter into contracts with each other directly, peer-to-peer payment systems, those sort of contracts that people want to engage in, but currently have to pay someone to enforce or create, this additional bureaucracy around personal choice. If we can eliminate that, that alone can have a huge impact on personal finance and people's ability to live their lives the way that they want to.
Yeah, perfect. I wanted to get one more conversation going before I get to the list here. What do you think about cryptocurrencies and it's not technically money, but we all know that you can launder money through crypto. Do you think that, regulations or our government will set something up? Like, what's your take on cryptocurrency and money laundering?
I think there is of people doing the wrong things with a good technology. What I do not believe is that government intervening is going to make things better or easier. They move so slowly. They are constantly behind the curve. And though I do honestly believe that on an individual level, so many people are well meaning in government, the aggregate result often ends up being an absolute train wreck. Where we really want to focus is, obviously as a super PAC, we think that it's really important to drive the candidacies of people who are pro blockchain and pro Bitcoin. But I think the surrounding issue there and is our goal needs to be to bring education to people who are already elected and change the conversation so that they're not sitting at their desk thinking that, oh man, that Bitcoin thing, it's just used for, drugs and narcotics and all these terrible things. They need to understand the true power. And if no one's going to take the time to sit down, have a conversation with them and start from square one, some of these guys, don't get me started on term limits, but some of these people have been in office since, before cell phones or computers. Like they haven't.
It feels weird to think that's true, but that is so true.
It's very true. It's very true. And, being able to provide that education, if this is an avenue to sit down with people and, when we sat down and we came up with the name Better Money, it's also focused around better leadership and better education and a better country. And I think that taking that broader approach and being willing to have an open dialogue with legislators who just, for better, for worse, I'll say no fault of their own, regardless of, where that actually shakes down, they haven't had the exposure. And someone just needs to sit down and say, this is square one. How can blockchain help America? And take it from there.
I like your whole thing on the education. I mean, it's weird to me that, no matter what level of free education you're in, none of it is covered finance. None of it covers finance. You can graduate high school and still not know how to write a check. You still don't know how credit scores work. Like I dropped out. I got my GED, but I knew how to write a check, and the guy who got his high school diploma that was in my freshman year class didn't know how to write a check. So I was like, dude, do you even know like what your credits like? No, they don't know any. So it's kind of weird. I think that this, like we have computers in every classroom, stuff like that. Money being technology will force that into being a criteria. So how you have computer class in every grade, you will have finance class soon. Hopefully, I mean, I pray, but I think it's kind of like a put my tinfoil hat on. I think it's kind of a conspiracy. They do not want people to know how to do anything financially for free. If you don't have the education, if you can't afford the education to know how to get money and use money, then you don't deserve the education to get money and use money in their eyes. So I
Right.
think that you're right. That it does have a lot to do with education, and hopefully we'll have classes on finance when it's all digital. Everybody's using their phone. Like any 7-year-old that has their own iPhone, which a lot do, it's really creepy. Because when I was 7, I had to use a computer in the living room, and my mom had to be like right behind me. And if
Right.
I was caught on that computer with no adult supervision, didn't matter if I was on Nickelodeon.com or not, I got my ass beat. And now kids are 7 years old
Yep.
with their own computer in their pocket. They hide in their bedroom. God knows what they're looking up. And it's crazy. So these kids could start their own bank account because that's Bitcoin. Any 5-year-old could download Jack's wallet and they could earn crypto on Steam it. And next thing you know, a 7-year-old has $1,000 in their name in their own bank account. So they're gonna have to teach at a young age how finances work because the entry isn't 18 years old anymore. It's whatever you're ready. A lot of my friends are setting their kids up with Bitcoin wallets with $5 in it just so they can show like this is how money works. Like when I was a kid, my mom would give me pennies, nickels, dimes and be like, show me what $1.25 looks like and you can have it. And I'm like, shit, I'm gonna fail this one. But I learned how to use money hands on, and I think because the entry to this money and this technology, you can give your kid $50 and they can buy something on Amazon, and it's so like to use money at this point with this technology is as free and easy as having a conversation. And you don't have to be a certain age to have a conversation. You don't have to. You don't have to have permission to have a conversation. So hopefully soon we start to see more education on this. I hope maybe that's one of the political, topics for the next presidential campaign is financial education. We keep saying we're in problems here, we're in problems there, but it definitely starts with education. Sorry to go on a rant.
No, I absolutely love it, and I agree completely. That's what I do in my day to day is when I'm working with families or businesses. A lot of times it's folks who didn't have that education, and if those gaps are there, the more we can do to fix it, the better. And I think it has to start young. Younger, the better.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you teach a kid how money works young, I've noticed this. People that learn how money works, like how you have to earn it, and then spending it is kind of like time spent. Like, hey, if I make $10 an hour and that thing costs me $10, crap, that was an hour of my day gone. When
Hmm.
you're young and you get that, kids will actually spend less and they'll save more. But when you just keep giving a kid $1 a day just to go get candy, they'll spend $1 immediately. They never save it till they have seven at the end of the week, so they can get the bigger thing they want. They'll just ask you for $7 at the end of the week to get that thing. So yeah, education and finance is very important. But again, I think that that's a conspiracy of my own. Like, we're not going to get that for free. That education isn't free. If you don't already have money, you're not entitled to know how it really works. But
Right.
soon, those people that are in that position, we're gonna have a paradigm shift. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are gonna make all us nerdy geeks super rich, and we're just gonna like Bitcoin is the only type of finance where you see people give away money, literally just giving it away to get people into it. I do it all the time.
Yeah. I think my biggest worry about that whole conversation, because you're right, we're on the edge of just this huge opportunity where people and families can gain so much from this tool, this education. And one of the big topics that we talked about at the outset of this project is, what if Uncle Sam gets in the middle? What happens if someone says, well, your kid shouldn't have access to a Bitcoin wallet? That would be irresponsible. And someone outside of your home, without knowing your kid, without knowing what the situation is, starts making decisions for you. That runs counter to a free market solution and allowing people to make their own decisions and move forward
Mm-hmm.
based on what they believe to be right. It's a real concern because we have seen it in so many other areas. And I hate to see such a fantastic tool fall off because of something so silly.
Yeah, this is giving money freedom of speech power. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I can send you a message and encrypt that message, and I can't get penalized for it. Like I can't get prosecuted for encrypting an email from me to you just for that act. But if I did that with any amount of value, that is illegal. Unless you're in
Yep.
cryptocurrency, now we're talking about it being a conversation. I can encrypt any amount of Bitcoin and send it to you, and I can't be prosecuted for that process. In my opinion, money laundering, but it's not technically yet. And that's where I'm waiting for all this to become a mainstream adopted currency. And that brings me to this question: do you think Bitcoin's price is a portrayal of adoption and evolution of the technology, or do you think that it's just an appearance of a bubble, the price wise?
I think it's an evolution. I think that we are going to see a market correction at some point of 10 to 15%. Just as you're always going to see people who they do get cold feet at the top of a market, they sell, and it really can change the nature of a market, especially when you actually are dealing with a finite amount of resources, not like the United States dollar where we just can print more and more and more. When you see the fluctuation like that, yes, we're going to see minor corrections, but over the long term, I'd like to think that because it's based on a finite value, because it's not just a question of can we continue to drive up a debt number or something like that, that we will continue to see an increase in value. And I think the biggest frustration for the future is when people are dealing with, how do you put it in grocery stores that you want to spend 0.0000025 bitcoins on a box of cereal, not not anything else having to do with a crash in value or anything like that. But that's my personal opinion, and that's just based on what I've seen in the marketplace and what I believe the potential of this technology to be.
It's funny when you say like when you're using Bitcoin at the supermarket or something, you see the volatility. That's so crazy because people, if you do look at Bitcoin and the money it's as a money and the volatility, you understand fluctuation in currency. But when you hold on to a physical $20 bill where the number on the paper money never changes, but the volatility is on the products on the shelf, people just don't understand currency volatility there. It's like when the shit
Yeah.
costs more at Walmart, your dollar volatility went, down. There's money volatility there. So when I'm trying to show people Bitcoin, they're like, "Isn't that like volatile?" I'm like, "Yeah, but so's the US dollar. Like how much was a bag of chips? How much was a bag of chips a year ago? A quarter. How much is it now? 79 cents. Do the math on what your dollar is worth now." And they can't because they didn't go to college. They didn't get the education for that math. But, but I try to have those conversations with people, and I see that like, yeah, but what about when I go to Walmart? Bitcoin will never be money. So the next question: will Bitcoin or cryptocurrency replace the U.S. dollar? Like, or will we always be using fiat on the front end, blockchain on the back end?
Man, that's $1 million question. Million is a much too small a
I
term
was
there,
saying I don't have that
actually.
money. I can't afford it. Don't answer the question.
Yeah, you got. um, at the same time, I see it being a long game in terms of actual replacement. Do I think that we're going to be walking around with something else other than United States dollars? Not in my lifetime. In the long term, however, I do see the dollar changing. So much of our currency is already digital, even if it's still considered to be a United States dollar. That the way in which we pay, I mean, the movement to Apple Pay, being able to use my cell phone to pay for something, and the dollar never actually transacted anywhere. Those continued improvements, at some point, the technology underlying what it means to have a dollar is what I believe will change to actually encourage people to use a comfortable term, because I think a lot of folks like to say, oh, I have a dollar, and that means something emotionally to a lot of people. But the underlying structure has to change, and we need to have a higher level of responsibility about the dollars that we do have, and hopefully control the number of dollars that we do have to make this country financially solvent in the next 20 or 30 years.
I don't know if our government will want to go digital, only because that would be probably an open ledger. We'd be able to know how much was in supply, and they don't
Yep.
want us to know that today. Like they try really hard today to make sure we don't know how much money's in circulation. They're like,
Right.
you can't audit us. No entry. So it's like if they went digital, they would be under supervision all the time, and I just don't think they have the incentive right now. I think we're gonna have to start with who we elect, and then we'll start to see those things. Because currently, that would be like if Blockbuster was the like vote on Netflix. Like, yeah, Netflix is great. Wait, Blockbuster, what are you doing? Like, if the current system was like, yeah, Bitcoin's cool. Wait, what are you doing? Like, you're killing yourself. So I know
Right.
that the current system that's in play will not work with cryptocurrency as it is. But I mean, the system that we have now didn't work if we were using pebbles and seashells as money either. So as currency changed, the way we use it and what we can do with it changed. And I really think eventually, like, in my mind, I know I sound crazy when I say this stuff out loud, but I don't care. We have things like Twitter now. We don't need a mayor or a governor to go to Congress to speak for us. I can tweet the president myself. I can be like, "Yo, bro, you suck." Hashtag, orange, and that's it. Like
And he
I,
might respond.
yeah, he
Yeah.
really might. Like that is a solid real maybe, dude. A real maybe. But that proves to me like why are there so many jobs that we didn't have the internet? I couldn't communicate with my elected leaders that put laws in place. I couldn't get my voice out there. So a lot of these jobs that are still in place could easily be replaced with an email box, with a bot, with a smart contract, so to speak. And
Mhm.
sooner or later, our mayor will be a smart contract designed by the guy that we call the smart contract. So Mayor whatever will be actually the name of the person who designed the smart contract that is actually governing the money in the city.
Right. And I think that you hit the nail on the head when you talk about, we're at this crossroads where we could go one of two directions. And in one direction, everything stays the same because the people who are running the system don't like change. It's put them in a very good
Mm-hmm.
spot. Like I said, they used a lot of money to get elected, and then they continued to implement those same financial practices to stay elected and to keep the system the way it is. The other option that we have is the one that we're trying to push after so hard, which is get smarter people engaged in the process and remove the upfront issues that they're having in getting elected, which is get their names in people's ears, make sure that they have the money to, you know, get their get awareness and actually have people say, hey, that is a good idea because this person can do more for me, not just because, Joe Schmo, incumbent A, B, or C has a bigger checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, we're no longer talking about ideas. We're just talking about donors. And that's the wrong conversation to be having
We don't
in
get
America right
smart
now.
politics. You know that, right? We get smart CEOs. Zuckerberg wasn't going to run
Yep.
for office. He was going to start fucking Facebook. Smart
Right.
people make bigger money. Like Trump makes it very clear he doesn't make any money doing the job of the president. He would make more money
Yep.
in one weekend doing whatever weird shit he does. So we don't get smart
Just
people
came
to
out
run.
actually. Did you see he had his ranking like in the world's richest people came out? I think it was in the last day or two, and he fell 94 spots
Ooh,
in 1 year
yeah, he's
in the
gonna
world's
he's gonna
richest
quit.
people.
He's quitting president. He's gonna quit, right? I mean,
You got-
that's a lot of money, dude. He's all about money.
it's a ton of money, and
Wow.
I know a lot of people want to credit him for taking that step, but at some point, you're right. The smart people are doing the decisions that make the most sense for them, and it can be a very self-centric sort of thing. But if we can move in a system where, hey, maybe you don't need as many people, and we can have a solid core of morally principled, intelligent, responsible people who are free market solution oriented, boom, hey, that's a different game. That changes the whole conversation of what we're looking at.
Perfect, man. Exactly. I do want to ask before I forget because they look pretty fancy. What's up with the pieces of paper up there?
Oh, this is sorry. I'm in my office where I meet with a lot of clients, so I actually just have some stuff from a couple different degrees. I was at Lafayette for my undergrad, and
Oh,
actually
cool.
finishing up at Lehigh for my master's in business administration. So just people, it seems silly, but the real reason I display it actually is because my grandfather made this frame, and it's this beautiful piece of work that he did, and it's really nice to be able to walk in and see his work up on the wall every time that I head into my home office every day to hit the books and get to work.
That's funny you said it was handmade because I actually complimented it in my head earlier. I was like, "That's a nice frame."
Yeah.
I
He's a
got all this.
very skilled guy. Yeah.
I have all these distractions because I don't have a bachelor's, master's. And when you get your
You
master's, are
got
you gonna? People have to call you master, right? At that point.
Good Lord, I hope not. I'm just finishing it up. I'll be done next semester, so I'm hoping that if anything, I can avoid that at all costs.
Well, if I got a doctorate, you're calling me doctor. I don't care what the doctorate's in. If I got a master's, I might skip on that term because of the historical purposes.
Yeah.
But it's a friggin' awesome thing to get, man. That's congratulations, and that's a lot of hard work and dedication.
I thought it was important, and it's a good thing to be able to take that knowledge. But to your point earlier, finishing up a master's degree in business administration, I never had a class in personal finance
Oh shit.
once through the entire thing, and that's one of my biggest complaints. I actually went into that program as a finance concentration, and the entirety of it was focused on corporate finance, not actually, helping people understand how money works on the personal level. So I think that that's one of the huge gaps in our education system. It's something we need to address to give everyone practical education, not just classroom learning.
Exactly. Before we wrap up, I got a couple things here for you. I was wondering, what's your favorite cryptocurrency wallet?
Uh,
Or what
uh,
one does the organization use? What's the wallet?
Absolutely. We are all about simplicity and being able to scale effectively. So I think right now we're using Coinbase as a very,
That's smart.
basic tool. So I love it. It's something I can help people who have never worked with cryptocurrency before. I can show them a login, a beautiful interface, and just help them learn a tool and help them really visualize, what a currency market looks like in a way that, hey, maybe they're not normally used to seeing currency markets,
Hmm.
especially digital currency.
Yeah, that freaks people out when you're like, "What's Bitcoin? It's digital currency." And you're just like, "Huh?" And you show them the Coinbase chart, and you're just like
Oh yeah.
immediately like, "I don't get this." I'm like, "Trust me, you'll get it."
Right. Yeah. But looking at a Bittrex chart where you're actually seeing some
Yes.
of the different changes minute to minute. That I've seen people. They're going purple in the face looking at me, and I'm like, all right, let's go back
Yeah,
to
no,
Coinbase.
Coinbase
We'll
is
start
very
there.
simple. But for what you're using it for, again, my tinfoil hat is on. I would like to take this moment to warn you. Coinbase is a California-based company. That
Mhm.
being said, if you're openly supporting a politician that's running against somebody that's already in place of power, they may have an option to, put some stress on Coinbase to freeze your account. And now you can't get your private keys because Coinbase doesn't let you have your private key. So if you're locked out of your Coinbase account for any reason, you can't actually use any of the funds. They're frozen. And I believe the Aldrich Foundation for Rich or Michael Aldrich. I always forget his name. Dread Pirate Robert, that whole situation. I believe their Coinbase account just got frozen recently. So that's just my 2 cents there. I use Coinbase to buy, but I would never use Coinbase to hold, only in the fact that they're kind of like a bank account. If your Bitcoin is on Coinbase's ledger, you actually don't have the money anymore. They do. You're asking for permission now to interact with your money, just like you would if you were using Wells Fargo or TD. So just be careful
One
if.
thing that I guess that that leads into is one of the options we've been considering, and this is something I've heard more and more about in the last couple months, is using physical drives, and just using as long as you can support the fee structure associated with an exchange, use a physical drive, keep it offline, and then simply trade in when you need to, especially when you're in a holding pattern. Thoughts on that?
I mean, I use Bitcoin for I use cryptocurrency for everything. Like I don't even hold US dollar anymore. I paid my rent off for the whole year months ago. I just cashed out some Bitcoin into a money order using my Visa card. So I do so much with it. It's really hard for me to say. Yeah, I honestly don't even know how I'm going to keep track of all this. Like I've said it publicly, like taxes season, I'm fucked. I have no clue what to do because it really wasn't easy for me to like keep track of it when I first started. I never thought it was going to get this far. So I honestly still am working on a ground plan. I actually have an interview I'm lining up with a tax advisor who specializes in cryptocurrency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think I should probably link you guys up because you might need an advisor for your crypto taxis. And that's why, like, when you said
Mhm.
Coinbase, because Coinbase keeps track of all the ins and outs. So, like, you can just print that and hand it right to your tax guy and be like, here, you do your thing. I pay you for a reason.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, for our quarterly and annual reports with the FEC, I mean, that sort of simplicity is great, but at the same time, our goal is to raise $150,000 in spendable money to focus on 3 or 4 campaigns in 2018. But our goal is to scale to 2.5 million for 2020. We want to be able to spend $2.5 million on campaigns for candidates who support cryptocurrency. And that's a goal that, having 2.5 million frozen is a major concern and something we absolutely need to address, as we continue to scale now and grow this movement.
I actually wanted to go back a step. I actually think I misunderstood the question because I was trying to keep up with the chat and everything I got here. You were actually trying to talk about the hardware wallet side, right?
Yeah, I was curious
Yeah,
just your
sorry.
thoughts on whether or not that's effective.
It is 100% because I had recently been hacked and had trouble because I didn't back up one wallet and all other problems. But the only thing that was never affected was my hardware wallet. So I guess that would be a good idea if you had the money on Coinbase, you cashed it out onto the hardware wallet. It's safe there, but then you have to worry about the value of it, USD volatility, when you spend it, when you cash it out again.
Right.
Because first in, first out rule using Coinbase, It's weird because you'll have to prove that you sent it to yourself and used it again. That's where I get confused with taxes, because like if I'm using Coinbase to buy Bitcoin and I'm using my Visa card that's linked to it, whenever I send Bitcoin out, how do they know that that was a spend and not a transfer to one of my holding accounts? Like, why is that got to be a considered a capital gain? Why is that a profit when I cash out at Coinbase when I'm moving it just to my ledger? So that actually might complicate things even more on your end, just for the heads up.
Right. Well, I can tell you, we are looking to bring on new people, and one person that we could really use is folks who handle the accounting side of things. From a philosophical point of view, and a general financial point of view, we're really solid. But we have a great representative, and I say that with all sincerity, in the FEC, a guy who is always on the phone, able to answer questions at the drop of a hat. But there's going to be a lot of work at the end of the year. We're looking to bring on obviously we're actively seeking donors right now. Hitting 2.5 million isn't going to happen because, I sat here and just kind of wish that it would happen. We're actively seeking donors in the crypto space, folks who are really passionate about fiscal responsibility and folks who are really free market oriented. We're looking for volunteers for media to, actually, work with our media pages, interact with people on a daily basis. Fundraisers, we are paying fundraisers to have conversations for us, which is something unique in the space. And we're also just looking for referrals. So, who can I be talking to? Who is really passionate about this stuff across the country? I'll fly out and I'll sit down and talk to them and have a conversation about, why it's important to them and how we could help make a difference in their lives.
Hopefully, we can help you get some donations. I'll grab the address from you and I'll make sure that that's in the description box below. What kind of cryptocurrencies are you accepting at the moment?
Right now, we are actively taking Bitcoin, Litecoin, and ETH. However, as it has on the website, bettermoneypac.com, bettermoneypac.com, if you send an email to hello@bettermoneypac.com and you want to pay in Nexus or any other currency that you're interested in, I'll set up an account and I'll make it happen. And that's our problem to deal with. You should be able to use whatever currency you want, and we'll figure out the details for you.
And shout out to Nexus Squad, Keith Smith, by the way. That's where I got this dope shirt at End the Fed from the Nexus table. So I wanted to shout out to my boy. Yeah, that was awesome that they sponsored that event, by the way.
Absolutely. There's some great folks to work with.
Yeah, I can imagine, dude. Their energy was high. Like, I thought I had high energy. I was running around talking to every table, and he was over there just like, he was louder than the band. I was like, yo, this dude has energy. Like, Nexus was on fire that day. Wanted to ask you a little bit about, like, how do you personally use cryptocurrency? Do you use it like I do as money? Do you trade it? Do you collect it and stack it? Use it as an investment vehicle? Like, what do you personally do with cryptocurrency?
Me personally, I use it. There's actually a lot of. So I live in Pennsylvania. I'm up in the Lehigh Valley, and there's actually a bunch of food trucks around here that accept cryptocurrency. So I'll use it to grab lunch. I use it in my day-to-day life. As I'm still waiting on my mortgage company to start accepting it and be able to make a larger jump. But I keep an active holding just for my own personal long-term gains, and use it wherever I can to support the movement and keep people engaged in the topic.
There's always a life hack for that. If your mortgage can't be paid in Bitcoin, you could always use local Bitcoins. Sell the Bitcoin for cash locally. Use that cash to buy a money order, because you can't just give cash to a landlord and call it a day. Because that's what I do. I do a lot of loops. And people like to argue that Bitcoin's too complicated, because they're like, how do you pay for your rent in Bitcoin? I'm like, I just go get a money order. How would you pay for your rent if I gave you cash? You go get a money order. Like, there's no other hoop. There's no other process. It's money. So it's just funny. Like you're like, oh, I got to wait for them to accept Bitcoin. Like, no. Somebody will definitely accept Bitcoin, give you the cash to give to them. And that, I like that about cryptocurrency, because it brings us back to like a small community-based, what's the word I'm looking for here? We're bartering system, you know what I mean? Like, it brings it back to that, because like you got chickens, I have pigs, I need eggs, you need bacon, what's up? You got Bitcoin, I got dollars, you need to pay your rent, what's up? And that brings it like, I see a lot of people gathering and becoming friends from local Bitcoins. And at my store, we sell Bitcoin through LibertyX. It's like a point of sale system. A lot of people are becoming friends, waiting in line to buy Bitcoin, or meeting at areas I know where people meet to do local Bitcoins. So it's driving the community back to like a peer to peer, in person thing. I kind of don't want to pay my rent directly in Bitcoin because I feel like that would take the peer to peer out of it. Just like, like when I got into Bitcoin, man, one of the things was no third party services. It's just you and me, bro. And then the first thing somebody sends me is a link to fucking Coinbase. I was like, explain the third party to me because it sounds like you're full of shit, dude. So I like the idea of buying Bitcoin from local Bitcoin. So if you're ever in a spot where you want to pay rent in Bitcoin, local Bitcoins, get your cash, pay your rent or your mortgage. I got rent, you got mortgage. That's goals. I got goals.
There you go. I love it. I love it.
What do you think though about the upcoming, regulations in crypto? What are some of the things that you see coming down the pipeline regulation wise that may be actually hindering what you're actually trying to do? Because regulation and what you're trying to do with helping finance political people that their parties and their goals, regulation could destroy everything you're working on. Like that's what scares me. So what do you think what kind of regulation do you think's coming, and what kind of regulation do you fear could impact your project?
The biggest threat to cryptocurrency right now is, I guess, goes hand in hand with the fact that it is becoming so mainstream. I'm sure you've seen it all over the internet in the last couple of days, but can you buy a Bitcoin? Can you buy a house in Bitcoin? And companies that are all of a sudden turning to digital currency to get around international tariffs. As countries and governments start to lose money, they're gonna start turning their heads and getting angry. And when I say that, I mean that there's going to be a few people in the United States government who get really fired up and make a big deal and start saying things that are half truths, and it's going to result in overregulation, meaning that you're going to lose the freedom of your ability to spend your Bitcoin the way that you want to. I don't know exactly what form that's going to take. My assumption is that it would be some regulation on the anonymity, or some regulation on the tracking to kind of know what's going where on a very personal level, and that as people like yourself and many others are using Bitcoin for everything. You're right. What happens when it comes to tax season?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Uncle Sam wants his hand in your pockets. He wants to be in your wallet, in your digital wallet, in your kids' wallets. They want to be everywhere. And especially as we get ourselves worse and worse into this financial situation, if the Fed ends up changing the interest rates, and we continue to build on this debt, even folks who are the most left of the left, there's a couple NPR articles about this, but as soon as that shift starts happening, there's going to be some real concern, and it could put the country in a really rough space. And when you look at billions of dollars in a viable currency that people are actively using, holy cow! Talk about low hanging fruit for a legislator to say, hey, why aren't we getting a piece of that? And that's what concerns me every single day. And again, one of the founding reasons for the Better Money PAC was to do everything in our power to make sure that if everything else goes to hell in a handbasket, we are still able to independently provide value and have a system of an economy that doesn't rely on a couple people in Washington making decisions for the rest of everyone else.
Perfectly well put, man. I'm terrified of regulations, dude, honestly, but I hope some of us are grandfathered in on these weird laws, because I know ignorance doesn't get you out of trouble when it comes to the law, but really, I don't know what to do with this money. You know what I mean? I don't want to use the US dollar. Ever since I was 18 years old and had my first conversation with a banker, I saw the scam in banking. The banker was like, okay, here you go. You have to keep $100 on account forever. It's in your savings account. If you go into that $100, you will be penalized, and if you go below that, you are fined again. So I was like, here, just take the $100, put it in your cash register. You keep the $100. I can't do that. Like, let's do business.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you know. So I was like, so basically, it's entrapment. Like, you're gonna put me in a position where you know I'm gonna fuck up. You're gonna charge me for it, knowing damn well I don't got the money to pay for that charge. That whole system is just failed, dude. Like, I saw it from the gate. So when I saw, you know, Ethereum, the internet, you know, Internet of Things, and Bitcoin, the Internet of Money, it all clicked like really quickly in like a weird way. Like, I get this. I see a use for this. And it was because like the system we're using now is just not working. And I was 18 years old when I saw that. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone's going to be in debt with this system. Like, you're going to let me borrow money with my credit score. I mean, come on. We know what the system is. It's a debt-based system. The more debt we have, the more value we have, because that's where our value comes from, our debt. It's insane, man. So I'm looking forward to some regulations because I know we need them. But some of them really terrify me because I like having the financial freedom of choice of currency. Like, if you go to any country in the world, you could choose to use US dollar or their local currency. Almost every country accepts US dollar, but we don't accept anything but the US dollar. I don't like that lack of freedom. I mean, I know I'm contributing to a fiat monopoly when I use the US dollar. I don't like doing that. So that's my take on regulations. I wanted to try to bring it back a little bit. I know we have to get going soon. So one of the last questions I have here is who are some of the people behind the Better Money Pack? You know, what are some of their you know, some of their reputable, you know, is there any names, any criterias, anybody that, you know, you can name drop or anything right now that's behind it? Some of the influencers of it?
Yeah, to a certain extent, you know, there are some folks who are running around who I can't name just because of their official relationships with other organizations. However, we are at this point actively looking to bring on 4 new board of directors, voting members who are C-level executives or above. And we're actually interviewing a couple different folks right now to fill those positions. So there aren't really a whole bunch of names I can name drop, if I'm being completely honest with you. What I can say is that, you know, based in Pennsylvania, we've had folks from Libertarian Party, from the Republican Party, from the Democratic Party actually as well, reaching out about how they can get involved.
That
And
is really surprising.
well, you know, we bill ourselves as nonpartisan, and I know that's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, but I genuinely believe that, you know, we can attract Trumpkins who, you know, want to drain the swamp. We can attract Bernie people who are really frustrated by the nonsense going on with big banks, you know, crypto investors who, you know, lock themselves away and want to have, you know, that independent existence and independent entity. And at the end of the day, we also want to bring in moms and dads who just are genuinely concerned about the financial future for their kids. And I think that message really hits home with a lot of people. So though it was initially, you know, and the Fed event, very libertarian crowd, very outspoken libertarian crowd. But as we looked at what the core issue is, it stretches beyond just simple free market solutions, and it really does involve responsibility, addressing the problems in banks, looking after mom and dad who are caring about their kids, and bringing that into one group that can do something significant in the long term.
I really hope like this is one of those things where I'm like, I really hope this works out because I want to live in a future where this is a thing. Not like I'll financially benefit from it or probably even personally benefit from it, but secondhand or a child of mine or, you know, somebody down the line generational will benefit from a project like this succeeding. So I mean it when I say I really hope this project succeeds. I wish you the best of luck, Connor. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on my show to talk about this. If there was one thing you wanted this audience to take away from this conversation, what is that one thing that you want to make sure they got and we can wrap it up.
I think the one final thing is just this is a movement about doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, whether you're passionate about financial responsibility in this country or cryptocurrency and the success of decentralized markets, or you're really passionate about free market solutions, at the end of the day, this organization is founded on transparency and helping people understand and provide education for people who are going to be making decisions or who already are making decisions. And if we can deliver that education to those people, we're going to be able to do some really great things. And I'm really excited. And thank you so much for taking the time and freeing up your schedule to have me on. It's been awesome.
Dude, this has been a blast, man. The chat box has been blowing up. I know everybody's enjoyed the conversation. It went on for a little while, so I like to think we could wrap it up. Is there anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you wanted to make sure we went over? Maybe you could let people know one more time where they can find you and the project and some of those social media details. I do have the links in the description box below.
Cool. Yeah, our major home is on bettermoneypack.com, so bettermoneypac.com. And also a large group of followers have started congregating on Facebook. So facebook.com/bettermoneypack. We actually had a number of requests to create a separate group just for discussion about the movement as well. So besides just the official page where a lot of the communication comes from, we also just founded a place for discussion, for conversation, for further formulating action plans. And I definitely encourage people to jump in, contribute, and if you like the ideas, you like where we're headed, this is a project that's scaling, and all hands on deck.
Awesome, man. All right, guys, everybody, thank you for watching. There's links to everything in the description box below. There's donation addresses in the description box below. There's probably one somewhere over here if you wanted to buy me a beer. Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Connor. Everybody, don't forget to go check out bettermoneypack.com, and have a night.